On Mondays, I've done this for years. I've created something because I find that people get overly emotional, lose all common sense, lose grip on reality, and I think just generally overreact. And so then I come at things with no feelings whatsoever. So I call this segment Overreactions versus Reality. I give the overreaction first and then a pretty cold-hearted dose of reality. That's the way it works. Follow along. Overreaction. The SEC is a championship in the SEC is very much up in the air. Reality. Now, right now, there should be no confusion, none, about the best team of the SEC. And I'll argue, happy to argue it, the best team in the sport currently. Your Aggies of Caldwell, Texas are ridiculously good. And maybe, and Aggies can relate to this, maybe more importantly than being ridiculously good, and they can. I'll document how ridiculously good they are. But maybe more importantly than that, they may be psychologically dialed in because they have a history of just blowing it when things seem to be going the right way. Doesn't look that way now. They are so good. They boat raced LSU on Saturday night and got Brian Kelly fired. There's plenty to talk about with that again. But there is no remaining team as explosive as A&M. If you need proof, and I don't think you need a whole lot, but I'll give you some proof. They go on the road to South Bend and score 41 points on a really, really good defense. They then go on the road in one of the toughest, if not the toughest places to play in the sport, maybe the toughest place to play in the SEC, and they blast a desperate, backed into a corner LSU team, and they score 49. There is no team in college football right now that can break open a game like A&M. And here's the thing about the Aggies right now. They can break it open in a number of ways. No one has as many weapons as A&M, and I don't even think it's close. They're doing this with arguably, by the way, they put up 450 yards against LSU. That's a good LSU defense. I know their coach got whacked and all that stuff, but that's a team that desperately needed to win at home. That's a team that is suspect on offense, but very good on defense. The Aggies put up 450 yards, 224 rushing, and most of that damage was done because this is how they can break out on you. They can just run off and leave you in a hurry. They did most of that damage in the second half. And here's the crazy thing. They're missing arguably their best offensive player. Running back Le'Veon Moss is still out injured. When they get him back, that offense will be unstoppable. It already is. What could possibly get in their way, right? I hate to plant the seed. I know Aggies would cover their ears and say, please, please don't go there. Please don't go there. But talent-wise, there's nothing to stop them. No one is as good as they are. And I don't know what people have been watching. And I know Brian Kelly getting fired, took the narrative away from A&M, and maybe that's a good thing in some weird way. But I think you're missing the story. The story is they will boat race anybody that lines up with them. So what's the risk? Injuries, and they've found a way to survive that too already. Peaking too early is a thing, I think, because college football now, because it's all about the playoff, and so, there's something to that, but they just seem to be getting better and better. They got a suspect pass defense, and that's how they end up in some of these shootouts. But I think the thing that just the elephant in the room is that choke factor. None of it's showing up so far. None of it. They pass every test. In fact, not only is none of it showing up so far, it's just the opposite. They weren't playing well in the first half against LSU. And they have a switch they can flip that nobody else in the sport has. They beat good teams, and they beat those good teams any way they want. A reality. Fiscal, as if there was any. Fiscal common sense in college football has lost its way. I'm not even sure there was much to begin with, to be honest, but it is completely upside down and completely distorted. There wasn't much common sense before this year, but in 2025, it'll be known as the year of the dead money. Take the money, set it on fire kind of year. In a sport, here's the thing that should drive you mad. And I don't think people ever care about the money, but at least care about the principle. In a sport that constantly complains about sustaining itself, the coaching buyouts are disgusting. More so than that, and I've talked about this recently. For every time some sugar daddy, college football suck up, which there's plenty of those, says, well, it's what the market will bear. I'm not arguing that you want to make the guy rich. The argument is, why are you so stupid and so played so easily to continually provide long-term contracts? You've learned nothing from the Jimbo Fisher embarrassment. What's even more shocking is the moron that did the Jimbo Fisher deal at A&M turned around and did the same thing at LSU with Brian Kelly. I don't know where anybody is with any common sense to say, why would we do that? Remember I did that segment where I told you Andy Reid doesn't have a deal like that. He's a 5-year deal. Nobody in the NFL operates this way. They don't do it. Why would you do it in college football? I asked a question weeks ago. The answer is you're just going to keep doing it. In fact, I think this whole thing is about to escalate. College football programs didn't learn a lesson from the Jimbo Fisher debacle at A&M, a $76 million payout. They're repeating it, and they're awfully close to exceeding it. And I don't think this will be the last by any stretch. LSU's Brian Kelly, who was this year lost to teams ranked 3, 7, I believe 9. He'll get more than $54 million to not work. And apparently, if the reports are true, he's willing to agree to make that $800,000 per month, like not a lump sum. You know, because things are so great in the state of Louisiana in education, crime, household income. And by the way, that's a joke. Things are awful in that state. But things are so great, their governor reportedly led the charge to whack Brian Kelly. Now, just so you know, this is the same governor that created legislation to mandate a live Bengal tiger be at home games. If you lose your company a bunch of money, you usually pay a price. But at the very least, you're embarrassed. It's a resume killer. It's a bad look. These people burn through cash like it's candy, with no regard for embarrassment. A couple of weeks ago, the New York Times reported the college football season will likely see more than $200 million in buyouts. That is enough money, according to Times, to fund women's sports and 5,500 scholarships in sports other than football. But you know what? Forget the $200 million number. Because we're at $160 million at least already in dead money paid out for people not to work. And we're not even in November. And one of the things you got to remember about these firings, they come with not just the head coach buyout, but the assistant coach's buyout. So, you know, if it's a $55 million transaction to get rid of Brian Kelly at $800,000 a month, to then pay off everyone else and then hire someone else, these are easily $100 million transactions. And nobody seems to care. Nobody even seems to care about how stupid this looks, why they would continue to do it, and that is provide long-term contracts. There's no reason to do it. Brian Kelly wasn't going to go coach the Browns, was he? There's no reason to do it. You can pay a guy $9 or $10 million a year. Why would you pay him for 10 years? Why would you lock him in for 10 or 15 years? So I don't think this madness is going to stop anytime soon. There's plenty of people going to get fired. There's going to be plenty more of this stuff. And I believe most of this stuff is planted by agents, and the people in college sports are just stupid. They just are. They're just fools. They're obviously played very easily. You don't see it in the NFL. But here's a prediction. The battle now, which is setting up, the battle now to hire Ole Miss coach Lane Kiffin, I think will result in him getting a $150 million deal somewhere. I mean, it doesn't seem that outrageous since we're at 100 is kind of the bar that's been set by Brian Kelly was at 95. Lincoln Riley, who's not won jack, got 110 at USC. So I think this madness might create a $150 million total package, whether Lane Kiffin stays at Ole Miss or whether he goes to Florida or LSU. He's next to move, I think, I'm predicting, the guarantee bar, long-term guaranteed bar, even higher. And look, I played at a football factory where they throw around money like it's candy. So, I mean, I get a lot of that mentality, but do not buy. Okay, don't buy this, because this is one of the things that people who are sugar daddies like to say. Don't buy the idea that big-time sports is the front porch to the school. These are supposed to be. I mean, anyone that buys that stuff, think about where you went to college. This is the look you want? This is what you went to college for? These are supposed to be academic institutions making an impact on business, medicine, and technology. And I know we live in a period of hating higher ed. It seems to be the political play of the day. But this is a morally bankrupt trend. And it's just stupid business. And frankly, it's bad management. If Andy Reid said, give me a 15-year deal, the Chiefs wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, even with Andy Reid. And I dare say Brian Kelly's no Andy Reid. He doesn't quite have the hardware. Blowing through hundreds of millions of dollars of firing and hiring a coach in places like Mississippi, Louisiana, and in the South, where this stuff is not only in the South, but where this is such a big deal. These are among the poorest, most unhealthy, and least educated states in the country, and these are state schools. Even if you say the money's coming from somewhere else, isn't it embarrassing? I mean, does any university president, I know the answer to this already, does any president ever say, or school board member say, you know what? We can't do this financially. We shouldn't do this financially. And it sends a terrible message. This is an embarrassing look. If we're supposed to be about students and faculty, this is really embarrassing. And I'm answering my own questions. The answer is obviously no. Nobody does that. Nobody steps forward. Nobody says that it's embarrassing. Here's the thing. I've told you many times, and this is an issue, and this is the reason why people don't stand up. Once rich men in the world of college sports, or people, but it's usually men, once they feel as if they own your program, it's like owning a team. The ego behind winning drives them, and they don't want to let go of their ownership of the team. This is mine. Everyone answers to me. And I think this increasingly happens. It's not the coach's fault for taking the money, but I think the numbers are going to get bigger, and I think we're going to see it more often, and that is long-term contracts. Feel free to disagree. I keep waiting for someone to say how much common sense there is in a 10 or 12-year coach's contract. Overreaction. Oh, boy. The Cowboys offense makes them a playoff team. Remember that? I kept hearing that last week. I heard it a lot. You're freaking out over your skis. We got it, Jeff. We got this thing. Reality. It's possible, but doubtful Dallas is a playoffs team. And please tell me you now see why. I'm not saying you don't paint your face and kind of lose yourself in good games or bad games. I get it. But please tell me you understand the trend that can prevent you from being a playoff team, even when you have a really good offense. Because last week, the neckbeards, actually, it wasn't even just neckbeards. It was ESPN hosts. And these are neckbeards and even non-neckbeards in the sports media world were screaming playoffs, screaming MVP, screaming coach of the year for Brian Schottenheimer. But then reality sets in. It doesn't set in every week. But please understand, you notice this, okay? Look, Dak Prescott will be in the running for an MVP. He's having a great season. He's one of the best passers in the sport. That stuff is true. He went 9 of 31 with 2 picks against the Denver Broncos. 2 things to take away. And I know you don't care, and I know we live in a fantasy football world, but just in terms of accepting a dose of reality, the dose of reality is this. 2 things. Really good defense beats really good offense. Always. It's just the way it works. When you suck on defense, Dallas does, you have a short shelf life. I've used that term continuously. The Cowboys are exactly what I thought they would be. This is looking exactly like I thought. The Broncos beat your Dallas Cowboys 44-24. The 24 includes a late trash touchdown. Okay? And I know you're probably finding yourself and going to do it this week and call some neckbeards and say, Dak Prescott sucks. I knew it. He would blow it. Brian Schottenheimer, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. You're wrong. Okay, you're wrong. The Dallas offense will break out. It'll have more huge days. Most of those will happen at home in perfect conditions where you can throw the ball a lot. They're going to do more of that stuff. This pattern is going to follow exactly the way it is now. Okay? And that is because playing almost perfect offense is impossible. You can't sustain it. It's easier to sustain great defense than it is to sustain great offense. The Dallas offense, let's see, the reality on how to win consistently in the NFL, the reality of how to win consistently at every level of football, it never changes, okay? Because being perfect is not possible. And good offense is easily outmatched by really good defense, like Denver's. See, you will lose. That defense is better than you. And Dallas is allowing 32 points a game. I believe they're 31 out of 32. You're not going to sustain winning that way. Oh, they're going to have some more weeks. Heck, maybe even a week or 2 from now, they're going to put up these grotesque numbers and you're going to freak out and go, see, Jeff, see? And I'm going to say the same thing. Don't worry. It will correct itself and they will get steamrolled on defense. The ceiling for Dallas, I'll stick with my prediction, will be 10 or 11 wins. That's the ceiling. And the floor is about 8 or 9. And they will bust out with 40 points. And then everyone's going to scream playoffs and MVP and coach of the year. And the cycle will continue to repeat itself. What you've seen so far this season is exactly what, assuming everyone stays healthy, you'll see the rest of the year. Overreaction. Texas's comeback win on the road against Mississippi State keeps them in the hunt, and it's a sign that Arch Manning and the Texas offense has arrived. Reality. Yes, technically, Texas is in the playoff hunt at 2 losses. But 2 things can be true, and I think both are true, about the come-from-behind win. It was fun. You giddy about it, all that stuff. And I just want to tell you 2 things are true. What's true? It was Arch Manning's best half of his career, and the best half of his career made it the best game of his career. 29 of 46, I think it was, had 3 touchdowns. Yeah, that part is true. What's also true? Texas could have easily cratered 17 points down on the road against a terrible team. That's true. What's also very true, Texas's speed and depth showed up again on special teams. See, special teams in no particular order. I know this is too nerdy, but I'll say this about special teams. There are 3 things about special teams, kick returns and all that stuff, that show up. And they show up big, obviously, in close games. But here's what you can take away with special teams. There are 3 things. In no particular order, you have all 3 and you've got a big advantage. Attention to detail. That's what special teams are all about, attention to detail. Speed and depth. Okay? And blue blood programs are going to have more of that. They're certainly going to have more depth, and it shows up. They're not, programs like a Mississippi State have to stick the same guys out there playing a lot of snaps. They run out of really good athletes who are fast. Blue blood programs are going to have more good athletes that are fast. It's just a fact. So the truth is that Texas's speed and depth shows up. Ryan Niblett had a 79-yard touchdown. It's obvious he's the most dangerous kick returner in the game. All those things are true. Those are true. Okay? What's also true is it's taken overtime to beat two of the worst teams in the SEC. In Mississippi State's case, they haven't won a league game in over 2 years, and now you see why. The truth is, with more logical thinking with more logical coaching decisions made by both Kentucky and Mississippi State, Texas should have lost both games to the two worst teams in the league. What's also true, Oklahoma's home loss to Ole Miss doesn't help Texas's cause for a playoff. It may not matter. I suspect it probably won't matter, but that doesn't help. And I think Oklahoma's got more to lose, more games that they're probably going to lose. Those will start to pile up, and that doesn't help Texas much. Also true. I think it's still true. This Texas team is sort of teetering. It's just wobbly. The overtime win against Mississippi State didn't change the reality that the Texas offensive line cannot protect, and it can't protect against the two worst teams in the league. So what happens when you play an A&M pass rush, which is one of the best in the country? And I haven't even mentioned a road game against Georgia. So even if Texas were to beat Vanderbilt, and I don't see it, but even if they did, there's no way they should beat Texas A&M. And I don't care if they played at Gregory Gym. It's a mismatch. I think those things are all true. All of them can be true. That's okay. Is a 3 or 4 loss season a good year at Texas? You can decide that. They got Brian Kelly fired, but you can decide if that's a good year. Hey, here's a recommendation backed up by my own experience, a great experience. And that is, I've been a client of DJC Law, and I can tell you this. You're going to get 3 things with DJC Law. You'll notice it right away. The difference is you will get peace of mind. They will take care of every single detail perfectly, and you will get the result you deserve. If you're injured by the negligence of someone else, fighting with an insurance company for any reason, trust me when I tell you, you will need DJC Law. Dan Christensen and his team of attorneys have a remarkable track record. I've known Dan a long time. He's a military vet. He's board certified in civil trial law, and I've been a client. So you can trust them. You will get the result you deserve. Check out teamjustice.com, and you'll see thousands of 5-star reviews. The bottom line is, if you're in an accident, you need DJC Law. Contact them right away. 512-888-9999.